Welcome to Legends Talk Live, where we sit down with legends, discuss games we love. I'm here with my co-host Cyberbro and the legendary Chris Clark, founder of Inner City Games Design.
That's, I suppose, anything this old is a legend, but you know, I don't.
We spelled the legend with a J. Does that count? So.
I believe Spike from Canada mentioned that it was pronounced Lejendary rather than legendary.
That's great. That's great. Welcome, Chris. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Before we get into the project that is the backdrop, which is, we put the Castle Wolfmoon cover in the back there for spoilers. Just curious, one thing I wanted to talk about, just because I've been doing a lot of deep diving in various games and such these days, and kind of living through my old playlist of 90s games that I was playing. And I noticed that in the 90s, that seemed to be the time when they started walking away from like class games and doing like class light or classless games, a lot of them.
Well, and on some level, they were also walking away even from programmed games, so to speak, into programless games. In other words, storyteller type games. Of course, like Vampire the Masquerade and things. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Ars Magica is another one, of course, that I thought was just a fantastic piece of work. But at the time, I was much in awe of those guys. If you will.
Yeah, ours. I just recently got to play that for the very first time.
Really neat system and very different if you're used to D&D. Yes,
exactly. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious. How did maybe we'll start with a little bit of background on Lejendary Adventures. How did that come about, and like how did you connect with Gary on that after TSR and everything?
So I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest Plus version, and I'm going to try and talk more quickly so that we don't eat up all of your time. So about 1989, TSR was in trouble. I knew this because my then partner was Robert Bigelow, used to write the miniatures column for Dragon Magazine. And he mentioned that he couldn't get anything from his distributor from TSR. They don't have character sheets. They don't have new adventures. They don't have second edition books. What are we supposed to do? And it's because they were having financial difficulty at the time. So I said, well, if there's a hole in the market, because I am an economist by trade, we should fill that. We should be the up and coming company that sees the need and fulfills it. And so I quick wrote an adventure, and I'd never done that before for publication, because there's a lot of guys writing great adventures out there. Why do I want to be a tree in the forest, right? Except there weren't, because TSR wasn't producing at the time. So I mentioned to my friend Bob, writer of the miniatures column, that Gary Gygax and I had known each other for a while. And if you're going to go ahead and go, you might as well go big. I'll give him a call and we'll see. Now, we didn't have cell phones back then, or we did, but they only worked in your car and they looked like a brick. Okay. I picked up his shop phone and dialed up Gary, which amazed him because Gary actually answered his own phone. Well, of course, Gary was reasonably unemployed at the time too, from the same reason. And actually was no longer with TSR, had been ousted by TSR about 2 years previously. And I said, Gary, would you like to write a module with me? And I want to say this was no longer the end of the 80s, it was early 90s. And Gary said, sure, whip up a contract. I'll correct the amounts because I'm sure they'll be too low. I'll sign it and send it back to you. And I was like, hey, great. Okay. So we came to an agreement, and he worked on actually 2 modules with me at that point, saw that they were doing fairly well. And that I knew how to put this stuff out the door without spending a whole lot of money, because I've never had a whole lot of money. And came to me and said, I have a final role-playing system I would love to launch called the Lejendary Adventure. But all of my investors don't think it will go anywhere and think that we need $30,000 to put it out the door. How about you and I just become partners and we say the heck with all you investors and we just do it ourselves? Do you have enough money to start the 3 core book set out the door? And I said, yeah, I could probably get the 3 books out the door for around $7,500. I've got that much in the bank. Sure. $7,500. No, you know what? He said, no, I don't want to know the answer to why that'll work for you, but okay, let's do it. And so we became partners. Excuse me. And believe it or not, we did put out the 3 core books at about $7,500 for all 3 books. They went into distribution. We made special editions of them, which then, of course, came out to a little more than $7,500 for 3 books. But so there's 3 versions of the core books that were then made available. And I mentioned to him, you know, you need to support this stuff with primarily adventures to begin with, not source books, and then follow it up with source books. Oh no, that doesn't work. I said, well, it worked for you guys in the early days, if you remember. And he thought about it and he said, yeah, okay, well, I'm not much for writing adventures, is what he told me. So believe it or not, if you have those 3 core books, and if you don't, next time you see me, bug me, because I'm sure I can find you a core set somewhere. They won't be signed by Gary, but they'll be the core set. I have about 2 dozen of them lying around here somewhere in the stockroom. And I got him to write an adventure that we put in the collector's versions of the core books. But that was the last adventure he actually wrote for Legendary Adventure that got published. We ran into John Cruffield in England, who wrote us 3 very wonderful adventures. The Legendary Road, Dance of the Fairy Ring, Mouth of the Marsh, all fantastic adventures. So John, good job. And then, of course, Greg Ellis from Canada wrote Fish for Breakfast. Oh, and I'm trying a number of them as well. And believe it or not, I wrote about 9 adventures for the system and put those out. But we only published the first 4. The rest of them, there wasn't quite enough money. So what we did is we put them out as tournament modules. And by the way, if you run this as a tournament at your local con, we will send you a custom made module, blah, blah. And that actually went over well. I've been told those custom modules that have you in the credits as the GM go for a couple grand these days, which, hey, I'm glad somebody got to make money for running a tournament at a con and having a good time in it.
Yeah, no doubt.
I don't know what I'm leaving out there, but eventually we got into, Gary gave me the Chronicles of the Legendary Earth as a single book, which was supposed to be the world source book for it. It was 96 pages. It read a little bit encyclopedia-like to me. And so I said, I've got an idea. Why don't I do a quick rewrite on this and see what you think? And he was all, oh, I don't know. My fans like this and blah, blah, blah. And so what we did is we segregated it. I don't know if you're familiar with the Chronicles of the Legendary Earth. Is actually now, I think, a 7-book series, of which only the first 4 were printed. But before he passed, actually. We added things to it. We added rumors and legends and myths of the countryside, and things like, oh, the queen of such and such actually has her eye on the king of so and so because he's a hot number and she likes him, and you know, whatever else. And he read through it and went, that is a little zippier. Okay, if you want to do those rewrites, you go right ahead. But I'm going to work on this Maledicted and Key of Sand source book over here while you do that. And I got through the first 2 books and running the company and waved a little white flag and said, hi, Steve, my good friend from the Troll Lords. How would you guys like to angel this and take over all the production stuff other than the writing? Because it's more than one guy can do. And I actually run a company on the side, by the way, Steve. And he was like, yeah, you've done other stuff. So, and that's how it wound up going over to the Troll Lords as well. Although if you look at the early Troll Lord stuff, there's 4 or 5 of my modules that the Troll Lords put out too, including the one that comes with the book, which is called Moon Slaves, if I remember correctly. But
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and right, and that kind of, I think you'd alluded that sort of ran into conflict for Gary when 3rd edition was being written. Like, I ended up taking some of his time away.
Wasn't making enough money. It was paying for itself and making 5-6%. Pardon me for going econ on you, ROI. Okay, so, and it was all my investment. And I would give about 5% to Gary and keep the 1% just so that my wife wouldn't bug me. Although I don't think we were married yet, but beside the point. Anyway, she was living with me, so it's all right. And we shared accounts. But Gary was upset because it wasn't making enough money. And I knew it was because our reach into distribution was not equal to that of what I would call a full mid-sized company like Troll Lord Games or I'm trying to think who was in the middle back in those days. FASA was actually one of the bigger companies at that time. So White Wolf was in the middle at that point because Vampire was pretty new. And, you know, I knew he could do a little better penetration of game stores with it. The numbers would come
Right.
up, and Gail would be happy, and Gary would be happy. And Gary was very pleased that I actually had approached the Troll Lords about it, because I only told him afterwards. And you do that for me? And well, good God, my friend, yes, this is not all about making huge money. If I was just in this to make money, I would have kept my original day job, you know. But Gary and I were very good friends, and frankly, it's because most things we saw eye to eye on, whether it be anything from politics to religion to women to how you raise your kids, all of it. Yeah, we were. It was like we were brothers from another mother, you know. Just very, very strange that we had never really spent the time talking to each other till we worked together. And then, other than some rules arguments, we never fought with each other. Everything was like, wow, that sounds great. Yeah, let's do that. So, you know, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So diving into the rules there, I mean, just having reviewed that game for the first time ever after I met you,
Yes.
One thing that caught my eye is the orders, or I
Right.
think they're called, and they're
Right.
flexible, kind of maybe like class light, more like a profession in a lot of different role playing games.
I always told people they were like guilds. And the reason I find them to be more like guilds than even professions is that at certain levels of proficiency, you know, in order to become a level 7 george, okay, you have to have your georgy up over 70% and this and that, and there are ways that you gain experience in that game that are similar to but not precisely the same as, for instance, Dungeons and Dragons. But you would go to the guild, and they would not only teach you some new incantations, they would give you a magical longsword or special armor or things you were entitled to due to your status in the order. And to me, that just had guild written all over it. Gary didn't like the term guilds. He thought it was overused. So he wanted them to be ordered. But you're not wrong in that it's really not a class system, because you can have unordered avatars. You can have a build it from scratch avatar that owed allegiance to no profession. And actually, about half the people that played used to run unordered avatars because they wanted to custom tweak their characters.
Mm. And
With that
who's Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask, what was the motivation there in the beginning when you're developing the game to go into that skill-based system versus attributes? Was that the end you had in mind?
That was pure Gary. All of that, seriously, was pure Gary. I looked at it and I went, okay, you said this was going to be different, but wow, this is different. And frankly, why did I like it better? Because although when you run a skill system, there's always the danger of, well, my character can't do that. I don't have that skill, right? He had the 3 attributes in there, and they're very broad based. They're almost most primarily used to avoid incoming damage, almost like a saving throw. Okay. So they really don't affect what you can and cannot do. They affect what affects you more than that. Okay. But by the same token, uh, it was kind of interesting that it's not that my character can't do this, it's that my character would never consider that to be the answer to solving this challenge or problem or whatever it might be. You know, okay, we're wearing plate mail and we have to wade through 8 feet of water. You know, and so, well, can I swim? You know, would be a normal first edition character of any class response. Whereas the warrior from Legendary Adventure would say, can I hold my breath that long? And he'd just walk across the bottom to the other side. He would never even think of trying to swim in his armor, nor would he think of taking it off. Hey, can I just, you know, can I hold my breath long enough to get to the other side? Okay, what's the big deal? If not, I'm going to put together a skin sack and let it down and hold air in it and take a breath halfway along. You know, yeah.
Right. Because I find it interesting, a lot of games from that time period, and really going back in the 80s, had the skill-based system, whether it was Cyberpunk, RuneQuest, and others. So I find it interesting that there's like some commonality there at the surface level.
Well, and the GURPS, of course, the most famous skill-based game of all time, right?
Yeah.
Hell, Steve. No, I like Steve. Don't get me wrong. The problem with GURPS is there's too many. The problem with a lot of the skill-based systems is they have 100 skills. And nobody wants to be the GM, because in order to be the GM, you have to know what those 100 skills do in fairly decent detail. Legendary Adventure has 42. It's still a few, but it's not too many. And because of the way he did his orders, many of them have a certain degree of overlap. So that if you're, what do I want to say, the rustic order, where you could be savage and rustic, and so that you knew how to really make it hurt when you got into combat, but you cared less whether it was good form, Pan, simply because that's not who you were. Again, that, we need to do this with integrity. And that would never occur to that character being a member of the rustic order, because that's just not how the rustics do things. Yeah. Anyway.
Definitely. Yeah. So in general, do you remember what the motive was for going away from the traditional class kind
He
of
wanted
system?
to be different, and he didn't want a game that was primarily combat oriented. Dungeons & Dragons, no matter how you slice it, is pretty much combat oriented. I used to tell people when we were in our marketing phase of Legendary Adventure, I used to tell them it's about what you can do rather than what you can kill. And that very much is the case. Half of the adventures that were written for Legendary Adventure are mysteries, which is really kind of cool. It lends itself to a mystery adventure where, yes, you have to protect your backside, but primarily you're trying to force clues out of every orifice in which they reside. And there are many, many ways of doing that depending on what your skill set is. And a nicely balanced party, which has a theurge and a george and a warrior and a sage, and and then you go, and everybody comes at that problem with a different skill set and a different propensity for success. And it's awesome because it sponsors teamwork. And what's more fun than a party all pulling together, right?
Exactly.
Seriously, yeah.
Yep. I know that in that era, I was looking for that. I was looking for more customization when I sat down to play like a fantasy game, because a lot of the modern games in the 90s were, when I say modern, I mean modern setting, not modern like the era, were trending towards more flexibility. And I remember just being like, what do you mean I can't use a sword as a wizard? Gandalf uses, the number one argument everyone used.
What, I don't know what the pointy end is? Come on.
Yeah, right. But no, I wish I ran across it earlier, to be quite honest. But it's very cool.
Have you had a chance to look at my Lance system?
Yes,
because it is completely classless. And again, the reason being because 90% of the adventures are not about shooting up the universe. They're about problem solving, and the many types of things that when you're in an environment in which you're not designed to exist, there's a million things that can kill you. And trying to make sure something doesn't requires more than just being able to shoot a laser rifle.
Very cool. So just on the note of Legendary Adventures, have you thought about it? Have you had any appetite from because I know there's a cult following with it for sure.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever thought about what a second edition or taking another shot at that might look like for you?
Well, interesting you should bring that up. That one is pretty much sealed up with the arguments that are spawned by the estate.
Gotcha.
Gail is certain she owns all the rights. The estate is certain they own all the rights. I will admit to being a bit of a curmudgeon and not surrendering a bunch of the files that I created, because I created them. They're mine. Sure. The company went and transferred over to Trollords with a very small amount, but let's be honest, some debt. And why should I just give you all this stuff? So yes and no. I tried to make a deal early on with Gail and was told that she didn't really care what I thought. So, okay. That's the only good reason to argue with someone is to try and change their mind. If it's a waste of effort to begin with, don't even bother.
Yeah, for sure.
It may still see the light of day. We'll see. I know a number of things have been settled at the estate. It's all looking pretty good. Everyone's a little bit more amenable than they were, let's be honest, God, almost 20 years ago now, So,
wow, yeah.
But there is still 10,000 people out there that play Legendary Adventure religiously and love it and would love to see the rest of the Legendary Earth series, for instance. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
And just to kind of pick up on some of the things I saw, like the damage looked very open and deadly.
Oh God, yeah.
Right. And I love that in combat, because what that does, it tells your players they can't just calculate success, which I think is what a real fight is like. Like you're like, there's a risk even if you're the best fighter in the world, if you're going against someone on the street.
And you don't get these guys saying, let's clean out the whole dungeon. Okay, that's
Right.
really not an option. It was funny. The only big knockdown drag out fight Gary and I had, and we used to have some that involved, name calling and swearing and all sorts of fun things. I'm sorry. It always shocked Frank Menser. You swore at Gary Gygax? Yes, Frank. Yeah, I wasn't working for him. We were partners, so you don't have to worry about getting fired. Anyway, was his spellcasting. Now I don't know if you read up on Theurge, George, the Enchanters, but it's
not too much.
Too darn long if you go by the strict rules in the book to cast a spell. The average combat in that game is 3 combat rounds. That's it. And that's for something with a few hits and you being not a first level guy. Although they're not levels per se, but you understand what I'm saying. Not a beginning character. So by the time 3 rounds goes by, you're halfway through a spell most of the time, which makes spellcasters worthless in combat. So he had things called knacks and quirks. And supposedly if you took a knack, you were supposed to take a quirk, and a knack was something you were just particularly good with, whether that was, I can do 2 things at once, or I should get an extra swing every round, or I have a eidetic memory, all those types of things. And then quirks were things like, if you eat cheese, you die, gorgeous looking women repulse you, whatever the case might be. But one of his knacks was rapid spellcasting, which have its spellcasting time. Anytime I played, everybody that was a spellcaster had rapid spellcasting because that helped. But even then, it was kind of long, and only the the Theurges, the holy clerics. Okay, they had some decent ones, but it was because they could summon people to come with them, summon a defender or summon a protector, or and then the protector would run around with you and protect you in combat. But that's not really classic spellcasting for a fantasy game, in my opinion. That and a quarter will get you cut off. Yeah.
I remember something. I don't remember exactly how it worked, but it was around daggers and the deadliness of the dagger.
Or are you tying Shadow Bolts? No, Shadow Bolts was the one spell that was completely OP. Pardon me for using online lingo. OP, yeah, totally overpowered. Because you could jack points into it. It was a really quick spell. It fired little shadowy bolts of magical essence, and if you pumped enough power into them, you could knock down something with 200 hit points in a round. Now you'd be done with casting spells for the day because you pumped all your power into it. But yeah, you're talking about daggers as far as.
Well, I thought I'm trying to remember, the weapons had some kind of almost like just more open-ended thing where the weapon value still, like the weapon size still mattered to some degree, but the dagger, in a dagger, good luck killing anyone if you're not a thief.
And it was almost a speed factor. And I think what you're touching on is most of the weapons did a die 20 damage, including the dagger. Does it die 20 damage? But it does a 1 to 20 damage versus, for instance, a broadsword is 6 to 20 damage. Well, how do you roll 6 to 20? You roll a die 20, any result 6 or less is a 6, is all that means. So he wanted to really mess with the guys who love their bell curves. And so he made them all D20 damage. But if it's that number or less, it's that number, was how he calculated. It can be confusing reading in the rules, but yeah.
That to me sounds like modern game design type of innovation. You know what I mean? Like I could see that if that came out in a system in 2025 that was still playing with the concept of damage, I'd be like, that's elegant. Like, because what it's doing is it's kind of creating this scenario where anything can be deadly in the hands of,
Correct. And that's very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there were criticals in that game were handled several different ways. I love the exploding die method. If you roll a 20, you get to roll again. If you roll another 20, you get to roll again, and you just keep adding on to it. So you can have a dagger that actually did 100 points of damage in a single blow, although the odds against that are roughly 10,000 and a few digits after, but not places after, to 1. Yeah, it's about 10,000, but still,
I
it's possible. You know?
Well, I think that's the interesting thing. I played a lot of games during that era with like open-ended damage. The fun thing about that is like the chance of this might be super low, but not zero. And if you're the one getting hit, I think a lot of the time when you're playing, the number one goal is to keep your players on the edge of their seats in some
Oh, yeah.
capacity. And if the outcome is 0%, they aren't going to worry about it. But if it's not quite 0%, they still got to just hold their breath just a little bit, just in that off chance that they're the unlucky number.
I want to say there are 6 or 8 different types of spellcasters in that game, and some of the specialties really shine through, I guess is a really good way to think of this. So for instance, the Master of Illusion can cause the person that's about to get hit with the exploding dagger die to suddenly appear to be 4 feet away, even though he didn't assent to that, and therefore save his life because the dagger hits a mirrored image of him, not the actual guy. I mean, all sorts of really neat weirdo spells. Rainbow Ram is one of my favorites. Magic Tunnel, and ways of getting through locked doors and secretive hallways, and oh, it's jammed, what do we do now? Well, the Trick Straps guy couldn't manage it, so let's use a magic tunnel and we'll go through. Your magic tunnel ended in rock and we're all dead, so now what do we do? Yeah, okay. But lots of really fun stuff, and he was wanting to try out all of the stuff that he couldn't get shoehorned into Dangerous Journeys, to be honest with you. And I'm sorry, I have some of those too, but yeah, it's there. Anything Gary made, there's some of it here somewhere. I don't. We're friends for a long time,
Yeah.
I met Gary when I was 14, for God's sake. So.
Yeah, you're telling me about his advice for your wizard.
Yes. Do not die with your spells intact unless you're an idiot. Yes.
Yeah.
and very sage advice. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So that relationship went on for a while. You guys knew each other for a long time. Tell us about Castle Wolfmoon. Tell us about when that got started.
Well, I personally think that in part, Gary finished up the final iteration with me because he was feeling like I had put out a whole bunch of effort for him and that he should pull his own weight with me, so to speak. And I not that I felt that way. I was just glad to work with the guy. I mean, good God, as much as I was his colleague, yeah, I was still a little bit of a fanboy. Of course I was. But it was amazing because he kept bugging me about, when are you going to show me that final Castle Wolfmoon adventure? And I said, well, it came out over 100 pages, and I can't even remember at this point. I could look at the file and figure it out. I had to, when arguing with several people, but whatever that might be. It was 100 plus pages, and nobody put out modules that were 100 plus pages. You just didn't do that because nobody bought them. And so I said, so I'm figuring it's just too big, Gary, unless you're going to cut it down for me. Well, I could take a look at it. So I sent it over to him. And honest to goodness, it came back about twice the size in 10 days. He pounded this thing out. And I mean, what was 380,000 words added in 10 days? 38,000 words a day? Really, dude? Oh my God, you're a machine, And he's like, well, I hope you get something out of this because, yeah, I had some fun with it, but you have a few problems in there that I fixed. So, well, thanks, Gary. And of course, now we have this 300-page module that I really can't sell. Although, what was AEG proved me wrong, right? World's Biggest Dungeon or whatever that was. Yeah. And so I'm sitting here 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I don't remember. It was either 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm getting older. I would remember. And I have a solid state 2 terabyte drive on my desk that backs up my machine every 15 minutes because I have written an awful lot of stuff. More than 200 titles have credits for me on them right now. And I have lost the occasional book with a hard drive crash. Okay. And boy, do I hear about it from everybody else I work with anytime I get a hard drive crash, because in honesty, I smoke around my machines, which I shouldn't do. But okay. So they hook this thing up to take the, if you have an external hard drive with an enormous amount of space on it, but you want to access it from a regular old everyday computer with, say, what, 12 gigs of RAM? No, not 12 anymore. What is it? What's the average these days? 16 gigs of RAM? I don't know. Whatever it comes to, the bunch of the towers. All right. And it tries to access a full 2 terabyte drive. It takes one look at the directory. It waves a little white flag and it says, no, we're not opening that. Are you nuts? And it overloads the ability to read the directory. So once a year, I have to go through, read the directory. So that year, I have a friend from the East Coast, Ed, and we're going through, and he's, what are you up to? Oh, I'm reading my hard drive. I'll be done about an hour. Can you wait that long? And then we'll say, have some lunch. I'll join you in an hour. Okay, sure. And he's looking over my shoulder, and he sees this file that says Castle Wolfmoon -GG. And what the heck is that? I said, oh, that's Gary's Castle Wolfmoon contribution from back like 2000, 1999, 2000, 2001, right in there somewhere. Wait a minute. You've got unpublished Gary Gygax material on your hard drive. Yeah, I wrote some of it too. Well, no, you're not listening to me. So be quiet, sit there. I'll be back in 5 minutes. And he goes off with his cell phone into my kitchen and get some lunch. And he comes back in about 5 minutes and says, you're having a Kickstarter next year. I said, am I? Really? Do I get any say-so of this? He says, no, you don't. And actually, there's a group of 3 different companies, one of which is pretty well known because it's on the page, which is Pulse Productions, I believe. I'm not at liberty to reveal the other 2 as yet, and they want to put 50 grand behind advertising on this thing because they think it might go a couple million on a Kickstarter. And I'm like, okay, you guys be the boss then. How about I just write stuff and sit quietly in the corner? And sure, that's fine. Okay. And so that's, yeah, we're off and running. And that was, I want to say that was, 2 years ago, I want to say. He then arranged it for the original GameCon Canada in Calgary, that they were going to do a launch party for us for the Kickstarter. I paid for the beer and they paid for everything else, which was pretty darn nice of them. And then, of course, later that day, there was a post on Facebook that kind of brought it all to a crashing halt. So, been resolved now.
It's been resolved. So that is
been recentered.
Yeah. Indeed. I imagine it had to be tough to pause for that long, but now that that's free,
I kept working.
Yeah. I mean, having all that readiness, and then you have to wait, with bated breath, I'm sure. What's it like now? So now you've got this, you've got the clearance to proceed.
Yes.
What kind of runway are you looking at from here?
I'm waiting for an answer from the other 2 people on the East Coast that I can't name, as far as when are we doing this Kickstarter thing, guys? My belief is it will be in spring of next year. They like spring for starting Kickstarters. And I have some more work to do anyway before I finalize the files. So that's all to the well and good. Mostly because, in fact, we wanted, so for instance, the project in full scope is the Challenge of Arms module that's already been released, the Ritual of the Golden Eyes module that's already been released, Cataract that we did the pre-production release on. I believe you saw it, GameCon Canada. Yes? Remember the one with the elemental girl on the front?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then there are three installments that are in the castle proper, which are Castle Wolfmoon Exordium, Castle Wolfmoon Portals, and Castle Wolfmoon The Depths. Then I also have a final book that goes to the series because somewhere in there you received a magical mace that, if you press the button, does 3 fantastic things once per day, right? And what were those? I don't remember. Where did we find it? Oh, it was in such and so. I'll go look that up in that book. No. You look it up in the Gazetteer, it's right there. Boom, done. All the items, all the critters, all the additional spells, anything you might need immediate access to is all nicely organized in a single compendium. Done. Because I've been running this at cons for years, and it's a pain in the butt to try and remember what they picked up 2 adventures ago. So
Yeah, I bet.
yeah. But I'm thinking maybe even as early as January, we'll see. I'm headed to the Philadelphia area convention, PageCon, in January, and I'm hoping we have an announcement to make there as per the Kickstarter, but we shall see. I have a number of contributors already, including Heidi and Eric Gygax Garland. Believe it or not, Ernie gave me a contribution before he passed.
Nice.
Yeah, I still get choked up a little bit over Ernie. But Jim Ward gave me a contribution before he passed because this project is that old. Luke has given me a contribution because he's decided it's okay. So we'd love to have him on board, if he's okay with it. And I have a number of other contributors. The Sashwicks, which are the folks that wrote the scripts for 12 Monkeys that was on Netflix, the series.
I watched a little bit of that. Yeah.
I actually thought it was really good. So when their names came up as these people might be interested, are you okay with that? Oh God, yeah. Anyway, and a number of other folks. We're hoping to big tent that as well. Looks like we might have as many as 30 contributors before all is said and done.
Nice.
And I kind of need to shoehorn them into the adventure in slots where they belong. So yes,
for sure. There's plenty of work ahead still.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Yes, sir. Or in this case, the baseball cap more likely, but still.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. I was thinking about this as I was going live. I'm like, this guy's from Wisconsin and I'm wearing a Vikings hat. I apologize.
It's okay. No, I like the Vikings. It's all right.
Okay.
And as Cyberbro and I have discussed, I'm actually from Illinois.
True.
Yeah.
In this part of the country, they call us fibs. I won't explain what that means, but although we've been here since 2008, and I'm sorry, Marriott that bought my old farm from me did not see the crash coming. And if you didn't see the real estate crash coming and you're in real estate, you shouldn't be in real estate. So we made a ton of money on our farm and came up here and paid cash for a farm and wound up not having bills for the first time in our lives, and it was wonderful. So
awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So
officially a cheesehead now. I'm sorry, officially. But have you seen any of the Wisconsin workouts that I do too? Oh my goodness. Okay, we're not going to bring it up. This is a gaming show, for God's sakes. But yeah, if you're nothing better to do, look up the Wisconsin workout on YouTube, and you will see there are, and in fact, most of them are also posted on Facebook. I also do a weekly show with slowing down.
You run a hell of a lot too, don't you, online?
We do, yeah. Well, you got a game, dude. It's about the game. If you're not gaming,
Absolutely.
what are you doing breathing?
Yeah, it's true.
Definitely.
Save the oxygen for people who game. I mean, yeah.
I always ask, like, when I talk to game designers, I always ask, like, what games are they into as a player, like when they get a chance to play, because it's true that a lot of people who are game designers are also forever GMs just by the nature of it, right? But sometimes it's a shocker, like something they like that, like, it's like very different from their game design.
I was a first edition guy. I still am. And it's funny. Because of that, I write best for first edition. So I have people that convert it to newer editions, including fifth. I can't, for the life of me, I can't do it because I'm too used to, you just make stuff up. What do you mean I have to check to see if there's already a spell that does that? No, you just make stuff up. Anyway, what do I play outside of that? I like playing BattleTech on occasion. I like playing, believe it or not, the old FASA's Star Trek Tactical Combat Simulator with miniatures.
Nice.
We play Kingsburg. We play what's the one with the card game with all the gems on it? I'm trying to think. The Jewels game. We play Seven Wonders,
Nice.
Carcassonne. So yeah, I play a little of everything.
Yeah.
My current favorite is I play a lot of Lance right now, but that's because I'm just way into that. The whole Expanse series that was on television, well, it wasn't really on cable, was just so well done. And it's funny, there would not be a Lance system if there had not been the Expanse, because I couldn't figure a system I wanted to play The Expanse with. So I made one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
One of the chatters says Splendor is the name of the card game.
So is correct. And my wife prefers Gigantic, which I believe you saw a copy of. That's the one with the sinking Titanic ship. We might or might not have had the 3D one out at GameCon Canada, the 3D version of it.
Oh, yeah.
Winner of absolutely no Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
All right.
it's
Well,
kind of it's kind. I just get a quick question in. I'm definitely an OSR guy, so a lot of the stuff that we're playing and we're doing is all like BX, D&D, and that type of stuff. So, what do you think about that? The curve coming back around to the older material or the older style of play.
It's weird because I never stopped playing the first edition. I played 3.5 with my friends who were brought up on 3.5. I play 5 with my friends who only know 5. I can't run them. I just don't have the system knowledge to feel comfortable running them. And when they play anything, I mean, I play first edition, but all the OSRs are pretty much all the same type of thing. They really are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
some of them better capture that spirit than others, but they're all pretty good. And they're always amazed at how freeing it feels to not have to remember all of your feats and abilities and look things up. And, oh, have you got this one? Okay, then I don't need that one. And it's, oh my goodness. I played World of Warcraft, for instance. World of Warcraft is pretty much a 3rd edition style game. And I had a good time, but it's not role-playing to me. World of Warcraft is a great game. It was a huge time sink for me. It probably made sure that 3 or 4 books never saw publication. It was that good. But it's tactical combat with your friends. That's really what World of Warcraft is. And you'll have just as much fun, in my opinion, playing Battlefield 42 if you play it with friends. Because it's tactical combat with friends. Anyway.
That makes sense. I mean, sometimes that overlap is pretty close, and I guess thinking of where D&D came from with chainmail, but also just how many people will role play their pilots in BattleTech,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And again, not to push electronic gaming so much, but if you've ever played a LAN party version of BattleTech, because of course that's one of the more common ones, there's guys who fly the console, and they're okay. I'm going to and it's like, okay, dude, you're not actually in the Mac, okay? You're on a computer. And I get such a kick out of it that flying the console is what all the guys call it. So,
I could see that.
Immersion is the best part of gaming. Getting away from your mundane life and actually getting to be a easy decisions to make in terms of integrity hero.
Definitely.
Yeah. The world is awfully gray. Your fantasy world need not be.
One thing I've noticed recently is just how much people have bought into, like, OSR is fairly popular in general, but Shadow Dark, for whatever reason, is just like lots of people are into it.
My inkling on Shadow Dark first of all, have you seen the books?
I played it once.
Okay, a beautiful presentation on the books, and
Yeah.
spot on for. It's funny. I tell people that are fresh to being game designers and have their first game coming out, and if you're going to design a football game, the dice ought to look like footballs. Make your presentation have the feel of what you're presenting. Okay, and oh my God, they nailed it. Number one. Number two, they kind of market it to folks that fell in love with what is it, Stranger Things on Netflix? Yeah. And oh my God, of course, yeah, it's hugely popular. Now I have one set of the Shadow Dark books here, which is I haven't even read them all the way through, but they're so gorgeous. I wasn't gonna, they were staying. Okay. And they really did a very nice job on the immersion side of making it both easy to understand and easy to slide into a different realm in your imagination, which not all of us are great at. And I'll even include myself in that on occasion. Gary and I used to have that discussion all the time. We called them links to reality. So the more something need not be explained because you actually do run into it on a daily basis, the more easily that person can become immersed in your world. Which is why if you look at Gary's worlds from Dangerous Journeys, or a lot of them look a whole lot like places that are on the Earth.
Mhm.
And why is that? Well, because the immersion factor is there. It's that much easier to grasp that maybe this is just an Earth that's, two chaos dimensions to the left. And so it's really not that different from the world I live in. And that's Stranger Things. That's exactly what they did. They said, oh no, it's not a separate place. It's just a different dimension of this place. And you can get there. And here's how, which was really kind of cool. Yeah. New season's coming up soon, by the way.
Yeah. I got an advertisement for that today. So yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, definitely.
They've already got me. So. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That could be the appeal of modern setting games. Your Delta Greens, your Call of Cthulhu's, stuff like that. It's the analog to what you deal with in real life is there's a link to reality, like you said. Yeah, definitely.
It was funny. You probably haven't seen, and I don't know if I gave a copy of that one to you either, but my Inner City Redux game. Inner City was actually the first game I ever wrote. And I wrote it because I had a number of friends in high school in the 70s that thought that Dungeons and Dragons was all this weirdo swords and sorcery and dragons and stuff, you nerds, So I said, well, what if it was a game about drugs and prostitution and like stealing things? Oh, we'd play that. Okay. So and I was also tired. Everything on television at that point was somebody's police drama, right? It was Starsky and Hutch, or it was Beretta, or Streets of San Francisco. Okay. And all of them were so campy. So we designed this game to be you play a crook in a really bad 1970s police drama. And the idea is to go around and kill people and burn down buildings and steal stuff. And yeah, I got all my friends playing it, but it's really not what I'd call immersive that way. It's immersive in that it's campy, but it's not immersive in that you're going to cry big alligator tears because your character passed away. Because believe me, you go through a lot of characters in that game.
Yeah.
You thought LA was deadly.
That's fair.
But it's always hilarious, and so that got people. Comedy is always easy to do. Comedy is easy to get people to play. So
definitely.
Yeah, but not necessarily for 9 months in a row. For that, you need a little bit more drama. And yeah, Shadow Dark is an excellent choice. Honest to God. Sorry, Bill, Mr. Barsh. I like your stuff too, but yeah, Shadow Dark is really quite good. So, if that was your choice, it's a wise
one.
Nice.
Good to hear.
Well,
is there anything?
I'm sorry. Is there anything?
Go ahead.
No, credit where credit is due. When I see somebody that really gets it, that knows how to be a designer, as soon as they're hatched from the shell, as we say, you got to give credit. I mean, I've been at this. I'm not terrible at it anymore. I've been doing it for 45 years. Oh my goodness. I better be at least halfway decent at it at this point. But as far as I know, and I'm trying to think of the nice young lady's name that wrote.
Kelsey Dion.
Yeah, Kelsey. Thank you. I think it's her first offering, and if not, if it's just an early offering, it's really, really well done. And yes, it is. Okay. Anyway,
I think she did some module stuff before that, but yeah, I think this is her first official game, if memory serves. I love me some Wayne's World. I'll do it.
Yeah, definitely.
So I did want to give you a chance. Is there anything else you want to call out to, or shout out, or draw attention to about the side of Castle Wolfmoon?
Let me see. Goodness, what am I working on right now? All the Castle Wolfmoon stuff. I went through the different iterations that we're planning on, all packing into the Kickstarter. So that's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books that will be the campaign setting for Castle Wolfmoon. All right. And by the way, the castle is 1 level up because there is stuff on the roof. 4 levels, main floor, 4 levels below that. And there are currently 11 extra planar adventures that you can access on level 3, which is why it's called Portals. All right. I'm also finishing up a world source book for the Rydal Kantara system for Lance, known installations of the Rydal Kantara system. And that's a lot of fun. I am doing level 2 of the artifact adventure for Lance, mostly because as I write it, I also get to make miniatures for it. I love those. I don't know if you've ever roamed Facebook, but I had these pictures of this big dome thing that we put together, all 28 in 28 millimeter. It's approximately 1,400 feet across, and it's all in 28 millimeter in a big circle. And well, there's 3 floors to that. So I got the other 2 floors. Also writing a hockey micro game. And then there are 2 inner city redux adventures we're working on. One I'm working on with Stephen Clements called the Bumpy Hustle. It's about a mob boss wants you to steal back a painting that was taken from him, but because he's under scrutiny, since of course he was robbed, he can't send his boys to do it because they'll get arrested. Okay. The other one is Hookers, Hooligans. Wait a minute. Hookers, Hobos, and Hockey Hooligans. I'm sorry, which is the one that we had the big hockey rink for. We're working on the final encounter where you're trying to get the jackal who is going to blow up the stadium with everybody locked inside while a hockey game is going on. And of course, the hockey game doesn't even pause, right? Because it's hockey. All right. And then we're also doing a hockey micro game, which is part of that scenario, but people like playing the hockey game that's a part of the adventure so much that we had to do a full set of rules for it. And I did find a guy that can make me little 28 millimeter hockey players. So, yeah.
Nice.
So busy guy. Yeah. And then if I can, I want to get to my hot rod this winter too, but we'll see.
Yeah,
Hot rod's in last place right now.
What is that? What is your hot rod?
A 65 Barracuda. I'm putting it on a 1996 Ford Ranger frame that has been shortened. And why a Ford Ranger frame? Because it's the right width. It's the exact width of the Barracuda. It'll take a Ford big rear end that I won't be able to turn into twisted metal with a large engine. It's got a universal engine mount, so I can put my big 440 engine. I'm sorry, let me use that today's terms. 7.4 liter engine in, which they didn't come with. So, yeah. And 15-inch 2-tone mags that came with the Ranger. It's all very nice. And I get front disc, rear brake, sway bars, all built in already. All of the modern conveniences of a 90s car in a 60s car without having to spend all that money upgrading the poor old Barracuda. So pretty much, yeah, we're just going to use the Barracuda shell and drop it on the frame. And then use the drivetrain, believe it or not, out of my wife's old race car. And this will stun you rigid. A 1967 Chrysler New Yorker, which I believe in Canadian translates as land yacht.
Yeah.
And she actually has drag racing trophies from running that car a quarter mile, where it would run about a 1520 quarter on a 6,000-pound one-wheel drive car.
Wow.
That's why I love the 440.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you how many sets of tires we got on warranty driving.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Stunned rigid. Considered rigid.
Anyway, and stop out sometime if you're in the neighborhood. Really,
Well,
we have a lot of fun.
You hit a lot of the cons as well, right?
We had been this year. A lot of them are up in the air. I no longer do Gary Con, and probably won't until I'm invited back. Just because I don't want to stick my nose in where maybe it's not appreciated. I may or may not do Dallas this year. We'll see. I had a friend that accompanied me to that show, and I was told not to bring him again because people don't like him. And I said, "What? You're canceling somebody?" I don't work with people that cancel people. I just don't. And I'm hoping that I've misread that. I'll make a call on that later this week. I'll apologize publicly right now if I indeed misread the cues there. But so this year, so coming up so far, all we're doing is PageCon, EggCon 2 in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin in July. And it looks like PhoenixCon in Appleton, Wisconsin, which is, of course, the con that was started by Cosmo Joe, who passed away just last year from an accident with an e-bike, which was unfortunate. He was quite a young man. But the con's still doing well. It's under the care and guidance of Dennis now, and I'm trying to remember Dennis's last name, but if you look it up, you'll find. And it's a great, fantastic, fun, but small local con. And when I say small local, 1,400 right in there. Nowhere near GameCon Canada. None of those are. So I don't think we'll be back to Canada. We'll see.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Current situation.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. That's why I'm staying here for now while I figure things out, and we'll see where things go. Because I'm dual citizen right now. So.
Well, I was told they were thinking of opening one in Toronto as well, Ontario, and I would certainly attend that. But it's quite the thing that always was that had me not quite hitting on 8 out of 8 cylinders up there, if I can use my car analogies now. Was we would be done with the Dallas convention, which is North Texas RPG Con, on Sunday, immediately get in the truck and drive to Alberta because that show started the following Wednesday. So we had
That's
3
a
days
long
from
drive.
Dallas to Edmonton. Yes. And yeah, well, it was bad enough when it was Calgary. Then they added another, what?
2 3 hours. Yeah.
Like,
Yikes. Yeah, that's a long drive. Yeah. My wedding up here, my brothers drove from New York to British Columbia, like south of Vancouver or north of Vancouver, I mean. And it was a good like 2-day drive for them.
Well, there are no roads that go even remotely directly, I don't believe, are there?
No.
Yeah.
No, they loved driving through the Rocky Mountains and stuff, right? But it was an adventure. I doubt they do it again.
And I'll warn you, it depends on what you're driving through the Rocky Mountains because the air is a little thinner. Okay, so your car is going to run a little rich, as we say, a little extra gas. If you have a 4 or even a small 6-cylinder, you need to crank it up coming down the hill because you're not going to be able to keep it in 3rd gear going up the other hill. And if you're constantly shifting out of 3rd gear as you go through Colorado, you're going to blow up your transmission.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we used to crank it up to about 100 coming down the mountain, and then it would get up to about 56 miles an hour getting to the top of the next one, and then down you go again. And unfortunately, my wife woke up one time when I was teaching my daughter how to do that. You have that 16-year-old drive the car at 107 miles an hour. What's wrong with you? You gotta learn sometime, honey.
Temporarily.
She thought it was okay. All right. And that's what I have coming up, and lots of cool miniature stuff to put together. I love doing events at cons in 3D. We are also putting together a light table so that when I run games, we can use the 3D miniature setup with a overhead camera, and is this where you want him, and numbered hexes on the maps and wonderful 3D displays. Yes.
Nice.
Talking about it's so much more immersive than just mind's eye theater. It really is. And Gary would disagree with me, but he's wrong. Sure.
That's fair. Okay, well, we'll let you go here. I appreciate your time. Thanks very much for giving us this time and answering a bunch of our questions and just hanging out with us. We really appreciate it, Chris.
Shoot me a link that I can spam the heck out of, and I will make sure that I post it all over Facebook because I love it when people want to tune in and see what I had to say. My ego loves it.
Be sure to do so. I'll flip it to you.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. All right. And for anyone listening, we're back next Wednesday. We're going to do some talk around King Arthur with David Larkins of Chaosium. So tune in for that. We'll see you soon, everyone. Take care.